handling contingencies and how to handle them properly. Hi, my name is Roxanne Gavari with Pemberley Realty here in San Diego, and today we're talking about contingencies. Well, I believe that anywhere in anywhere in the U.S. we have contingencies, but since I am only licensed in California, I'm only going to talk about contingencies in our state and how they work. So that being the case, there are many contingencies when you are opening escrow and you're starting the process of being under contract and helping a buyer doing their investigations to purchase the property, and also help the sellers to basically satisfy those contingency periods and help the buyer make a decision to move forward and purchase a property. Now, contingencies could be the general contingencies that you deal with are physical inspection contingency, appraisal contingency, loan contingency, insurance disclosures, title. These are all contingencies that are on the sale. Sometimes you also have contingency of the sale of the buyer's property, or contingency of the seller finding replacement property. Those two last ones that I mentioned are ones that could create more complications than normal. And because in a normal transaction, and when I say normal, there's no such thing in real estate as normal, but the more common ones that you see, and the more common contingencies, you obviously have physical inspection, appraisal, and loan contingency. Beyond those, for contingency of the sale of buyer's property or contingency of the seller finding replacement property, those two can create a lot of complications during a real estate transaction. So if you have a buyer that needs to sell a property in order to buy another one, that the complications with that is, okay, so seller is basically pulling their house off the market in order to so seller is pulling their house off the market for a buyer that has a house that may or may not sell. Now, if the buyer's house is already under contract, then you kind of are overcoming those hurdles a little bit. But what if you go under contract with the buyer, and the buyer's property is either priced incorrectly or is not a desirable property? Now you, as the seller, you are sitting with your house tied up to the house that the buyer has to sell, and in that process, you may lose other opportunities to basically get buyers that are ready to go, and they don't have a contingency of selling that property. So how do you deal with that? And then you also have sellers that the contingency of the seller finding replacement property, and if you have a buyer that agrees to accept that contingency, now you basically give the seller a way out of the contract until they find a property that they're willing to purchase before you, the buyer, can really move forward. So those are some of the complications that could occur with contingency periods. And how do you deal with it? Now, the market condition really dictates what contingencies you get or how you deal with those contingencies. At my office, we sell a lot of distressed properties, or you could also call them fixers. And what would constitute distressed property? So you could have a property that's in foreclosure. You could have a property that is in going through the process of short sale, and Voila! Look
I am.
who just came in.
Just came in. Hi, everyone. It's Santiago. I was working with one of our clients here, making sure we got all our stuff taken care of. So,
So talking about disclosures, you were talking about contingencies, and disclosures go hand in hand
yes,
with contingencies. You were actually helping one of our clients fill out disclosures to satisfy the contingencies of reviewing and eliminating the disclosure process. Correct?
correct. Yep, correct. It's always
Okay.
good to have these the disclosures taken care of nice and early if you can, just to get them out of the way because once you get that buyer in, they're going to want to see the disclosures right away. So,
Absolutely. And so we were talking about distressed properties, right?
yeah,
And the best way to actually sell a distressed property is to basically eliminate the buyer's opportunity to have any contingencies
correct,
upfront, right?
correct.
That has been the best way for us to sell distressed properties. So do the disclosures early. Get as many inspections as you can prepare for the buyer early. Order your termite inspection. Order your title report. What else do we need to prepare early to send over to the buyer prior to accepting their offer?
I mean, if you have a home inspection, you know, that could work. Maybe like a roof estimate, if depending on the
Sure,
home.
sure,
Termite, termite, very
sure.
important. Um, what else? Having the disclosures ready, that's good. Maybe even foundation. I mean, that might be a little bit. I mean, it all depends to who you're trying to sell and if you just want them to remove their contingencies right away.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I totally agree. And so once you get all of that lined up and ready to go, then the next step would be to make sure that you price the property properly so that you create multiple offers. For distressed property, you want to make sure that you create multiple offers, correct?
Yep. 100%.
And then once you create multiple offers for the property, now you basically put everything in front of the buyer, and you have the buyer go through and do all of their diligence up front, so
Yeah.
that if you're accepting that offer, it's already at a point where all contingencies are removed up front,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's one way to, yeah, I think that's the most effective way to tackle that, just to make it easier for, yourself as the agent and then to your seller to not have to, be relying and waiting for the buyers to do all that work, which can delay. And then if they back out, then it's like, you just wasted 10, 14 days doing doing their own inspections when they can already see whatever needs to be seen up front.
Right, right.
So that's very important.
I totally agree. So that's the best way to basically eliminate any pitfalls with contingencies for a distressed property. And the distressed property could be a house that's been foreclosed on, a short sale, a probate, any property that needs a lot of work, that at the same time would be attractive to an investor.
And what about, a buyer that wants to do their own inspection? Let's say they don't want to trust your home inspector. They're like, I just want to have my guy. How would you go on about that? Would you still open escrow or get into contract with them and have them do their inspection? Or would you let them do it beforehand?
We've had both of those scenarios, right?
Yeah.
And on a distressed property, I think you're almost always better off And I think we just had another incident where we took out an owner occupied buyer, first time buyer on a deal like that. And even then, even though we wanted to be very we wanted to be community oriented, and we wanted to have goodwill towards a first time buyer, it ultimately ended up not working out because the amount of repairs that the property needed spooked the buyer after they did their inspection, and after they tried to renegotiate the price with the seller. That still did not work out, and we ended up selling to an investor. But with the difference and the caveat that if you sell directly to an inspector to an investor, you are leaving a lot of money on the table, and you could be taken advantage of because you don't have representation.
Yeah.
And if you are dealing with a seasoned agent, a group of agents, which would be one of, for example, we are very much um, uh, uh, experience in dealing with these
Yeah.
types of sales.
Yeah.
Not only we ensure that we're going to get top dollar for our clients, and we don't leave any money on the table, but we can negotiate it to a point that is going to bring the best results.
Yeah.
And even with us and all the experience that we have, we got to make sure that if we're trying to be community oriented, still make sure that all the contingencies are removed up front, because we have seen how it can basically blow up in our face
Yeah.
otherwise,
Yeah.
right?
And we don't want that.
And we don't want that. We don't want that. Now, I'm going to go back to the two more complicated contingencies that are not necessarily contingencies that you see on a distress sale situation, and that is contingency of the sale of the buyer's property, or contingency of the seller finding replacement property. You normally see those two contingencies when you're not dealing with a distressed sale, but you're dealing with either move up buyers or move down buyers.
Yeah.
Move up buyers being buyers that are trying to find a better home to move into, and move down buyers meaning that they're trying to sell. And most of the time you're dealing with sellers that they're trying to downsize, moving from a two-story house into a one-story house, moving from a house into a condo, moving into from a bigger property into a smaller property, something of that nature, where they need to find replacement property before they put their house on the market, or they may need to put their house on the market because they need to cash out on the equity of their home, but they still need to find a replacement property before they are completely selling.
Yeah.
So those two contingencies can make things a little bit harder, and can make our life a little bit tougher, as well as our clients' lives,
Yeah.
right?
And what exactly is there a timeline that they would have to be for that sale to have, you know, would you taking a buyer that is selling their home, but that their home is barely going on the market? What are some suggestions that you can give to agents on when that, comes across, when they're helping sell a property, and there's a pretty good potential buyer, but they're just getting started with selling their home? How do you go on about that?
So I would say if you are so if you're dealing with contingency of the sale of the home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it all depends on what you can negotiate.
Yeah.
If in a market that we're in right now, when homes are selling on the market for a long time, you can negotiate that. But if it's a hot market, and homes are having multiple offers, then contingency of the sale of the buyer's property is almost impossible to get accepted,
Yeah.
right? But even then, if let's say the market is not that hot and you're able to get that offer accepted, then you have to be reasonable that, okay, normal contingency periods are about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. You want to get your property under contract within that 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The seller may be generous to give you a little bit more time, maybe a month,
Mm-hmm.
but within that month, you better have your property under contract, which means you probably want to give a little bit more money to the seller, and you want to get a little bit less money for your house, because
Yeah.
this house has to go under contract quickly,
Yeah.
and this seller over
Have to
here
wait.
has to wait.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then on the other end, on the seller finding replacement property,
Mm-hmm.
that could turn out to be very, very stressful.
Yeah.
Not so much for the seller, well, even for the seller, but for sure for the buyer. Because normally, if you go under contract, the seller has to sell. The buyer doesn't have to buy. The
Yeah.
buyer has many ways to get out of the contract, but the seller does not. The seller has to sell if they go under contract,
Yeah.
unless they go with a contingency of the sale of finding replacement property. That's the
Yeah.
only way that they can get out.
Yeah.
But if they have that way out, then the buyer is sitting here waiting for that buyer that for that seller to find replacement property. What if they never do?
Yeah. They're just wasting time. Yeah.
Exactly. So those two contingencies can become very stressful on both sides.
Yeah.
And I would say there needs to be trust, and cooperation on both ends. Otherwise, it is very difficult to get a deal like that done.
Yeah. I agree. And it becomes kind of like a waiting game, having to sit and wait for a property to sell or, so the communication on that has to be very clear between them, all parties on what's
Right.
going on. So,
Now, we recently had one of those scenarios, and the way that we were saying to make it work was it was actually a buyer that would want to put a contingent offer on another property.
yeah.
And what we were discussing was to put an offer on the property that they wanted to buy, then put their house on the market, and basically buyers um, have their buyers basically start their process right away,
Mm-hmm.
so that they're ready to go, or get their house on the market, find the buyer, do all of the, and then the buyer, if they put a contingency of the finding replacement property, then that buyer is probably not going to want to, invest in paying for a physical inspector, paying for an appraisal. But if the seller is willing to incur that cost, or pay for that upfront for the buyer, then the buyer is going to be ready to go, right, to
Yeah.
perform. And then when the seller goes and puts offers on other properties, the chances of their offer getting accepted is a lot higher, because their buyer is ready to perform.
Yeah.
And it's as close as you're going to get into a cash situation.
Yeah. Like the timelines are going to be a lot closer together to each other when one sells to, purchase the other
Right.
ones.
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
makes sense. That makes
So that's the long and short of it for contingency periods, and challenges that you face when you have contingencies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and remember to try and knock those things out early in the transaction just to have a little bit more peace of mind during it.
Yeah.
So
And as part of that, I would say insurance has become one of the important ones too. It didn't used to be that insurance was a contingency of the sale because insurance was easy to get. But now that insurance has become more challenging to get, especially in California, insurance has become a contingency of the sale.
yeah,
And the best way to deal with that is as soon as you go under contract, you want to secure insurance, and you want to make sure that you are able to get insurance, and so that at the 11th hour you don't find out that oops, either insurance is unobtainable
mhm,
or it is too expensive to actually get the deal to go
yeah,
through.
yeah, no,
So,
okay.
all right. Anything else that you think we need to add to our conversation?
No, I mean, contingencies are the most important kind of, I would say, one of the most important things of the transaction, making
Yeah,
sure that those contingencies are removed, and from then on, smooth sailing. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, for all the agents out there, if there's questions, always feel free to call us, reach out to us. We're more than glad to help you all.
So on that note, let's share our phone numbers and our contact information. There's my phone number. There is Santiago's phone number.
Right there.
And if you want to join our team, there's our website. If you want to be part of this conversation, definitely reach out to us as well. We would love to have you as a guest over. And there is my Instagram. You can reach out to me there. There's my Facebook. You can reach out to me there. And of course, on our website, you can reach out to us there, or simply give us a call or send us a text. There's mine, there's Santiago. And of course, if you are watching this and you are an agent in San Diego and you would want to be a member of our team, we're always looking for great agents such as yourselves to join us. So reach out and let's meet up.
Yep. See you guys later. Hope to see you on the next video. Thumbs up on if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, follow us on social media, and we'll love to see you guys here at our office. So see you guys on the next one.
All right. See you guys on the next one.